Della Voss pulled the hammer back on her rifle with both children pressed flat against the snow behind her. The man on the horse wasn't moving. He wasn't reaching for a weapon. He was barely breathing. Ruth grabbed the back of her coat. Henry didn't make a sound, which scared Della more than anything she had taught him. That silence meant danger. The man slid sideways in the saddle, and Della had 1 second to decide whether to let a stranger die in her camp or step forward and catch him. If this story already has your heart, hit that subscribe button right now and follow Della's journey all the way to the end. Drop your city in the comments below so I can see exactly how far this story has traveled. Now let's go back to that cold Montana night and find out what one woman with 2 children, an empty purse, and a Dutch oven full of courage did when the wilderness sent a dying man to her fire. The fire had been burning for 3 hours before the horse appeared at the tree line. Della heard it first, the labored rhythm of hooves breaking through crusted snow, too slow and too uneven for an animal under normal command. Her hand was already on the rifle before she turned around. Ruth looked up from the bedroll where she'd been keeping Henry warm, and Della caught her daughter's eyes and gave one small shake of her head. "Stay." Ruth pulled Henry closer without a word. The horse came through the pines like something dragged out of a nightmare. Gray thin, her breath coming in desperate clouds. The rider on her back was slumped forward at an angle that meant he was either dead or close enough that the difference wasn't worth arguing about. His hands weren't on the reins. He was just hanging there, held in the saddle by nothing except the sheer stubbornness of a body that hadn't gotten the message yet. Della pulled the hammer back. She stood with the rifle raised and the fire at her back, and her children 6 feet behind her, and she did not shake. She had learned a long time ago that shaking was a luxury for people who could afford to be afraid. The horse stopped at the edge of the firelight and just stood there, her head hanging nearly to the ground. The rider didn't move, didn't raise his hands, didn't say a word. "You alive?" Della called out. "Nothing. I asked you a question. You alive or not?" The man's head moved just slightly, like the word alive had traveled all the way down from some distant place and arrived too weak to do much when it got there. A sound came out of him that was more air than voice. "Trying to be," he said. Ruth's grip on Henry tightened. Della could feel it without looking. She kept the rifle up and walked forward 3 steps, enough to see his face in the firelight. He was young enough to be dangerous and old enough to know better, with the kind of hollowness in his cheeks that came from days without food rather than years without comfort. His lips were cracked raw. His hands, resting useless against the saddle horn, were the color of old ash. "You got weapons?" she asked. "Colt, hip, rifle, saddle." A pause. "Knife, boot. You planning to use any of them?" He made a sound that might have been a laugh if he'd had the energy to finish it. "Ma'am, I can't feel my hands. I couldn't use a weapon right now if I wanted to, which I don't." Della studied him for a long moment. The horse shifted beneath him, and the motion nearly sent him off the saddle entirely. He grabbed for the horn and missed, and it was that the way his hand reached and found nothing that made her decision for her. She lowered the rifle. "Get down," she said. "Slow. Don't fall into my fire." "Doing my best."